So, good morning, students. Today we have a very interesting story, but it is a lengthy chapter A Horse and Two Gods, written by R.K. Narayan. You must have heard about him. He is an Indian writer. He is known for his humor and for his ability to make readers fall in love with his characters, who are very unique in their own ways and still typically their own class. And we have heard about the Malgudi of Narayan, which is a created fictional place of Narayan, and his characters are also very typical. Here we have Muni, the very typical Indian old village man who spends his day doing nothing and is so poor so as not to have money even for proper meals. And against him, we have an American, a typical materialistic man. Okay, and the other side we have a traditionally Indian old villager, and here we have in the red American the typical materialistic man who has come to India to have a look at the hardships in which people live. And as he sees the horse statue, he thinks about possessing the statue and put it up as a showpiece in his drawing room. So, with these typical two characters, R.K. Narayan is able to create a fantastic tale of miscommunication. Okay, so the story is all about the miscommunication between Muni and the American, where Muni thinks of the American as a policeman, as he is dressed in khaki, and the American thinks about Muni as the owner of the statue. And there is a misunderstanding between them, and they communicate accordingly, and the language between them are also not being understood by each other. So, the misconceptions that these characters have about each other because of the language barrier and their view of life make the story interesting and humorous for the readers. And the setting of the story is in a small village called Kritam. Kritam is in Tamil Nadu, somewhere in the southern part of India. Uh, it is actually, according to the description of the author, it's the tiniest village of India, having only 30 houses. And it is one of the unknown villages of India, though the name itself is significant, as Kridam means the crown. And in this village, most of the houses are mud houses, signifying that the people are mostly poor. And then we come to know how this poor Muni knows only Tamil and the American knows only English. Besides the horse statue, they are meeting and they converse with each other about various things without understanding what the other person is speaking about. And the fun is that they carry on conversing where more than miscommunication is prevalent, as Muni thinks that American is the policeman. And then we have the American gets interested in the horse meanwhile, and then he thinks he mistook Muni as the owner, and so therefore he plans to buy it. And the irony of the situation is that while both of them are so different, they are similar too. The irony is that they communicate and share bonding over cigarettes, but they fail to understand each other because of not having a common language. So the author made a balance between the narration and dialogue, and narration is done so as to provide the readers with the background to the whole conversation that happens between Muni and the American, whereas the dialogues are used to give authenticity and humor to the conversation. So hope you will read about R.K. Narayan. We know about him. Most of his stories are set in the fictional South Indian town of Malgudi. And R.K. Narayan's style is simple, easy, and unpretentious, and his stories explore with humor and compassion the everyday lives of the ordinary people. So we will find in him the Indian poor villagers, the ordinary people of India, most of his typical characters. We'll go through your text, children. Please take page number 52 of your treasure trove. A horse and two gods. Lesson 3. Have you all got the text with you? Okay, so read with me, children. Of the 700,000 villages dotting the map of India, Kridam was probably the tiniest, indicated on the district survey map by a microscopic dot. So, in order to show how insignificant the village is, he is telling that if you take the map, actually a map gives the location of the villages and the approach route to it, isn't it? And it serves as a guide for motorists or a source of revenue for the revenue collectors. And then here the writer says, it is so small that it was a microscopic dot on the survey map. So you need to use a microscope in order to find this tiniest place in South India. And then he says, but its size did not prevent its giving itself the grandiose name. Although it's the tiniest village, it has a very grandiose name. Grandiose means very elegant name. What is the name of the village? Kridam. Kridam means in Tamil coronet or crown on the brow of this subcontinent. So in the subcontinent of India, in the brow of, on the top of it is the tiniest village called Kridam. The village consisted of less than 30 houses, only one of them built with brick and cement, painted a brilliant yellow and blue all over the gorgeous carvings of gods and gargoyles on its balustrade. It was known as the big house. So in that village, we came to know it's the tiniest village and it has only 30 houses. And then in that 30, only one house was the big house. Why was it called a big house? Because it was built with brick and cement and painted a brilliant yellow and blue all over the gorgeous carvings of gods and gargoyles on its balustrade. Balustrade means what? The railing. And gargoyles means comical figures of human beings or animals. It's a kind of art, especially seen in the villages, and that you can see in Tamil villages. Okay. So this is why the house is said a big house, because it's made of brick and cement, and it was painted, and it has got the carvings of gods and gargoyles on its balustrade. The other house is distributed in 4 streets. So the village has got 4 streets, and then they were generally of bamboo, thatch, straw, mud and other unspecified material. These houses, the other 30 houses which were distributed in 4 streets were made of, they were thatch houses with straw, mud and other unspecified material. Munis was the last house in the 4th street, beyond which stretched the fields. So Muni's house was the last house, and beyond which it had a field. In his prosperous days, Muni had owned a flock of 40 sheep and goats and sallied forth every morning, driving the flock to the highway a couple of miles away. So this Muni was once upon a time a very rich man, a prosperous man who had 40 sheep and goats, and every day he used to be taking these flocks to the highway, which is a couple of miles away from his village. There he would sit on the pedestal of a clay statue of a horse. And this is the horse, we come to know later, become the a source for the American and Muni to get into conversation. Okay, so he used to be, from the early days itself, he used to be sitting on the pedestal of this clay statue of the horse, while his cattle grazed around it. He carried a crook at the end of a bamboo pole. Crook means a carved sickle. So he used to carry a bamboo, and on the tip of which, end of which, there used to be a sickle. For what? snapped foliages from the avenue trees to feed his flock. So he used to take leaves from the trees when he goes for the grazing cattle. He also gathered faggots and dry sticks, bundled them and carried them home for fuel at sunset. So he used to pluck leaves for his gods, and also he used to carry the faggot, means a bundle of sticks and dry sticks, in order to use it as a fuel for the home, for his house. His wife lit the domestic fire at dawn, boiled water in a mud pot, threw into it a handful of millet flour, added salt, and gave him his first nourishment for the day. When he started out, she would put in his hand a packed lunch. Once again, the same millet cooked into a little bowl, which he could swallow with a raw onion at midday. So, this was the meal of poor Muni. At dawn, early in the morning, his wife used to cook the gruel out of millet, and then it was the morning breakfast used to be the millet gruel with only salt, and the same food will be packed for lunch with an onion. So this was the only meal provided to Muni. So we come to know how poor this Muni and his family is. His fortunes had declined gradually, unnoticed. Means he himself did not know that he was deteriorating. His wealth was finishing off. It had declined without being noticed. From a flock of 40 which he drove into a pen at night, his stock had now come down to the two goats, which were tethered to the trunk of a drumstick tree which grew in front of his hut, and from which occasionally Muni would shake down drumsticks. So this poor man who had 40 goats in the beginning now has come to a decline, he having only two gods, and these two gods were tied to the drumstick tree in front of his house, from which he used to pluck the drumsticks as well. So he used to shake down drumsticks. This morning he got six. What is that? Six drumsticks. He carried them in the sense of triumph. He was so victorious. He felt so victorious having six drumsticks from his drumstick tree. Although no one could say precisely who owned the tree, it was his because he lived in its shadow. So nobody knew who owned the tree because it was near his house and he lived under the shadow of the tree, and so he thinks that he is the owner of that drumstick tree. And in the villages, there is no proper fencing and the land is just spread all over. The people live in their houses, and then nobody claimed whose the tree is and where the boundaries are. In those days, not today. Today we, even in the villages, we have fragmented the land. His wife said, "If you were content with the drumstick leaves alone, I could boil and salt some for you." So his wife said, seeing him bringing the drumstick, "If you could be contented with if you will be satisfied with the drumstick leaves alone, I can boil and salt some for you. I can put some salt and boil it for you. But if you want to chew the drumstick, you need to season it." So she's telling, now Muni is telling, "Oh, I am tired of eating those leaves. I have a craving." Craving here means I have a desire to chew the drumstick out of sauce, I tell you. So the poor man expressed his desire to chew the drumstick. He had been eating only the drumstick leaves all day. So he said, "I desire to have little bit of curry made out of the drumstick with seasoning with onion and all that." Okay. Now to this, what does his wife say? "You have only 4 teeth in your jaw, but your craving is for big things." Now how she is provoking this poor man by teasing him, telling, "You have got only 4 teeth in your mouth and how can you chew the drumstick? And this, your craving, your desire is only for big things. All right, get the stuff for the sauce and I will prepare it for you." So she provoked him in such a way that if you get the ingredients for a sauce, I can prepare it. After all, next year you may not be alive to ask for anything. But first get me the stuff, including a measure of rice or millet, and I will satisfy your unholy craving. Our store is empty today. Dal, chili, curry leaves, mustard, coriander, gingerly oil, and one large potato. Go out and get all these. He repeated the list after her in order not to miss any item and walked off to the shop in the third street. So we come to know here it is in the third street they have got a shop, and his poor wife said they have nothing other than the drumstick leaves. If you want a drumstick with the sauce, you must get the ingredients. So she gave a big list. What are the list? She said you need to get a measure of rice, and then she said dal, chili, curry leaves, mustard, coriander, gingerly oil, and one large potato. If you bring all these things, I'll prepare the sauce, the drumstick sauce for you. And also she says, provoking him, telling, after all, next year you may not be alive to ask for anything. So she is taunting him in such a way, telling, I am ready to cook for you and I know you may not be alive for the next year. So I will fulfill your craving. And what is she is giving an adjective to his craving? Unholy craving. Do you think that the poor man had an unholy craving? They are such poor, even desiring for a little better stuff of meal is unholy, because they consider themselves are very poor who are not supposed to be desiring for some great things. And can you think a drumstick curry is something so very great? So this is how Narayan is introducing to us the poor village situation of India, and how the poor villagers are satisfying themselves with a little insignificant lifestyle. Muni sat patiently on an upturned packing case below the platform of the shop. So you must have noticed if you walk through the village shops, and there will not be some benches and the chairs as we have in our malls and other big shops here in the town. So if you like they used to be upturning the tomato packed wood boxes, okay, and here poor man sat on the upturned packing case. The shopman paid no attention to him. Why? Usually the shopkeepers pay attention to their customers because they want to sell off their things. But here the shopkeeper did not pay attention. Why? We come to know that the man here, Muni, is going to the shop without a penny. Muni kept clearing his throat, coughing and sneezing until the shopman could not stand it anymore and demanded, "What ails you? You will fly off the seat into the gutter if you sneeze so hard, young man." See, young man. Again, poor Muni has been teased in such a way by the shopkeeper, calling him young man. Why he was coughing and sniffing and sneezing? Because he wants to get the attention of the shopkeeper. And then he tried his best in order to bring his attention. Muni laughed inordinately, means in an appropriate way he laughed in order to please the shopman at being called young man. This completely won the shopman over. He liked his sense of humor to be appreciated. At last, Muni could succeed in taking the attention of the shopkeeper by giving an appreciation of genuine smile for the humor with which the shopkeeper called him a young man. And he knew it was just like teasing, but at the same time, not being hurt, he simply acted as if he was so happy with the joke and humor of the shopkeeper. By thus humoring the shopman, Muni could always ask for 1 or 2 items of food, promising repayment later. Some days the shopman was in a good mood and gave in. And sometimes he would lose his temper suddenly and bark at Muni for daring to ask for credit. So it was the usual custom. Muni goes to the shopman telling that I will pay you later. He would take for rent, okay, for credit. He would buy some list of things, and then few of the items he could get from the shopman. The shopman said, if you could find 5 rupees and a quarter, you will have paid off an ancient debt. How much have you got now? So the shopman said, you have already a credit, an ancient debt of 5.55 and a quarter. If you pay that much, you will clear the debt, your previous debt. I will pay you everything on the first of the month. As always, and whom do you expect to rob by then? So, who says this? I will pay you everything on the first of the next month? Muni. This was how he used to be getting the list of items from the shop. He says every time he would pay in the first of the month, but he has no pension, he has no salary, he does not draw any salary, and so the shopkeeper is asking, whom are you going to steal, rob off? Muni left caught and mumbled. Now he knew that he is caught very badly. My daughter has sent word that she will be sending me money. Now he simply said, my daughter has said she is going to send some money for me. Have you a daughter? Sneered the shopman. So the shopman gave a shrieking smile, asking him, have you got a daughter? And she is sending you money? For what purpose may I know? So the man again teased him, saying, I know that you do not have a daughter, and for what purpose will your daughter send you money? Birthday, 50th birthday, said Muni quietly. Birthday? How old are you? So he said it's for his 50th birthday, his daughter is going to send some money. Muni repeated weakly, not being sure of it himself. 50. He always calculated his age from the time of the great famine, which he stood as high as the parapet around the village well. But who could calculate such things accurately nowadays with so many famines occurring? The shopman felt encouraged when other customers stood around to watch the comment. So poor Muni, he was caught up. He said 50th, but he himself did not know when is his birthday and how old he is. He used to calculate his age with the famine that had taken place when he was small. He had watched the famine standing on the parapet of a um, of the village well. Now the things became so worse between the shopman and Muni and the people gathered around them. More likely you are 70. So the shopman said, you are not 50, but you look like a man of 70. You also forget that you mentioned a birthday 5 weeks ago when you wanted castor oil for your holy bath. See again, holy bath. Okay, that means that once upon a time only he takes bath, and so this man is telling when you had come 5 weeks ago to buy some oil for your bath. At this, Muni obtrusively rose and moved off. So poor Muni, he knew that he has no way to get anything, so he just got out of the shop and moved away unnoticingly. Unobtrusively means unnoticingly. He later told his wife that scoundrel, who is the scoundrel here? He is mentioning the shopman. Scoundrel means the worthless fellow or a rogue, would not give me anything. So go out and sell the drumsticks for what they are worth. So he told his wife, I don't want the drumstick sauce where you go and sell the drumstick. He flung himself down in a corner to recoup from the fatigue of his visit to the shop. So the poor man hurled forcefully into a corner in order to recover from the fatigue, the tiredness of his visit to the shop. He was mentally tortured in a way. Okay? His wife said, you are getting no sauce today, nor anything else. I can't find anything to give you to eat. Fast till evening. I'll do you good. It will do you good. Take the gods and be gone now. So the wife became so very she couldn't stand with the whatever Muni spoke, and so very arrogantly with all his anger she said that you are not going to get anything today. Go out with your gods and get away from me. She cried and added, Don't come back before the sun is down. He knew. Who said this one? Don't come back before the sun is down. His wife, okay? He knew that if he obeyed her, she would somehow conjure up. Conjure up means get, achieve some food for him in the evening. Only he must be careful not to argue and irritate her. Her temper was undependable in the morning, but improved by the evening time. So beautifully, the Narayan is putting the right words, isn't it? Her temper is unpredictable in the morning, but it is improved in the evening. Towards the evening, she becomes little calm, because when she gets up in the morning, she knows that she has nothing to cook for the day, and she becomes so very nervous and irritated. But evening, she may be going around and working and getting something to cook and feed her husband, and so her temper comes down. She was sure to go out and work, grind corn in the big house, sweep or scrub somewhere, and earn enough to buy foodstuff and keep a dinner ready for him in the evening. So the poor lady used to go to the big house and do their household work in order to earn something for the foodstuff, in order to prepare food for Muni. Unleashing the gods from the drumstick tree. Unleashing means releasing the gods, untying the gods from the drumstick tree. Muni started out, driving them ahead and uttering weird cries. Weird cries means, you know how this village people, they used to make some kind of noise in order to clear the road, because they are grazing the animals. So he made some kind of weird, strange cries time to time in order to urge them, in order to push the gods to move forward. He passed through the village with his head bowed in thought. So he was still deeply thinking about the incidents that occurred in the shop. He passed through the village with his head bowed in thought. He did not want to look at anyone or be accosted. A couple of cronies means friends, lounging in the temple corridor, hailed him, but he ignored their call. So his friends who are sitting in the temple courtyard or the corridor uh, made noise in order to greet him, but he did not pay any attention to his friends. Accosted here means detained. The shopman had said that he was 70. What was disturbing? What thoughts were disturbing this poor Muni? Because the shopkeeper said that he is 70. At 70, one only waited to be summoned by God. So poor man, Muni, he knows that if 70, he is about to die. He is only summoned to be called by God. When he was dead, what would his wife do? They had lived in each other's company since they were children. He had been told on their day of wedding that he was 10 years old and she was 8. Progeny none. Perhaps a large progeny would have brought him the blessing of the gods. Now, what were the thoughts in his mind while he was going to the pedestal of the statue of horse? He was thinking about what the shopkeeper said, that he is 70 and he knows that 70 people only wait for their death. And then he thought about his wife. What will she do without him? They were married. They had a child marriage when he was 10 years, and when she was 8, they got married. From then they were for each other and had no children, no progeny. And usually progeny is considered as a blessing to the family. And he thinks himself as being a cursed man. Only on the outskirts did he lift his head and looked up. He urged and bullied the gods until they meandered along to the foot of the horse statue on the edge of the village. So he did not raise his head until he reached to the horse statue. And he bullied the gods means he aggressively led the gods to turn around only near the horse statue, which is on the edge of the village. He sat on its pedestal for the rest of the day. The advantage of this was that he could watch the highway and see the lorries and buses pass through to the hills, and it gave him a sense of belonging to a large world. The only advantage that he had sitting on the pedestal of the horse is that he could watch the highway and the running of the rush of buses and the other vehicles, and then he felt himself belonging to a larger world. The pedestal of the statue was broad enough for him to move around as the sun traveled up. So, when the sun is on the just direct, he has to move to the shade. So he used to move around on the pedestal from one place to the another in order to keep himself away from the sun. Or he could also crouch under the belly of the horse for a shade. So it was a big statue. That is why under the belly of the horse also he used to sit in order to get a shade. The horse was nearly life-size, molded out of clay, baked, burned, and brightly colored, and reared its head proudly, prancing its forelegs in the air and flourishing its tail in a loop. Beside the horse stood a warrior with a synth-like mustachios, bulging eyes, and aquiline nose. Now it's all about the horse, the other hero. You see, actually, there used to be some questions from this. Who the protagonist is? Is it Muni or the horse? Who the protagonist? So here, beautiful description is given about the statue. The statue is referred as the horse. The statue was life-sized, made of burnt, brightly colored clay, and it stood with its head high and its forelegs in the air. And the statue of the warrior beside that of the horse is depicted as a man of strength through his description as a warrior with synth-like mustachios, bulging eyes, and aquiline nose. And then the horse itself was said to have been as white as a dhobi washed sheet. So the horse is a white horse and had on its back a cover of pure brocade of red and black lace. So it had a rich fabric decorated with a silver and gold pattern. Okay, brocade of red and black lace matching the multicolored sash around the waist of the warrior. So the warrior also had a sash, a waistband with a multicolor. So also the horse also had a kind of a rich fabric. Okay, and so it was somewhat matching to the warrior. But none in the village remembered the splendor, as no one noticed its existence. So what you see daily and daily, you do not give much of importance. So the villagers had lost all its attention towards this horse because they had seen it from their young age, from their smaller ages. So nobody noticed its existence. None could feel the existence of this horse anymore in the edge of the village. Even Muni, who spent all his waking hours at its foot, never bothered to look up. So they never found anything so very interesting about in the horse and the warrior. Even Muni, who used to sit daily under the shade of it, never noticed the beauty of the horse. It was untouched even by the young vandals of the village who gashed tree trunks with knives and tried to topple off milestones and inscribed lewd designs on all walls. So the young vandals, you must have seen the young boys used to carve their names on the rocks and the trees in order to mark some kind of topple of milestones. They used to inscribe their lewd sign, means vulgar or lower grade designs on the walls. You must have seen they used to draw love and the arrow mark and their names and all these kinds of funny things on the trees and the walls and the rocks, but none of them dared to do anything on the horse and the warrior. This statue had been closer to the population of the village at one time when this spot bordered the village. So, actually, this was kept as a border of the village. This statue was considered as the border of the village, which separated one village to the other. Muni sat at the foot of the statue watching his two gods graze in the arid soil among the cactus and lantana bushes. Now we come to know around this statue there were no grasses actually. It was all arid. It was a dry desert like. It had only cactus, the thorny bush, and the lantana leaves, some evergreen shrubs. Even then, he used to keep his god grazing there. It had no bushes, no green grass, but still he was grazing his cattle there, and so he kept on doing the same, even without noticing that his gods did not have enough grass to graze there. He looked at the sun. It had tilted, means slanted, westward, no doubt, but it was not the time yet to go back home. So he usually the villagers they did not have the clock or the watches to find the time. Only according to the direction of the sun they set the time. So he looked whether the sun has gone to westward, only then he can go home. If he went too early, his wife would have no food for him. Also, he must give her time to cool off her temper and feel sympathetic, and then she would scrounge and manage to get some food. So if he obeyed his wife and do not disturb her until evening, he is sure to get some meal. She would either borrow or beg and manage to get some food for him. Also, it will give her time to cool her temper and would feel sympathetic towards Muni. I think we stop here, children. The next part is the entry of the American, and then we have the all fun of miscommunication in the coming lines. So all the best. Read up to here. God bless you.